Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. It all started on a Saturday afternoon in the old garage on Oak Street. The smell of dust and oil mixed with the sound of instruments being tuned, creating a familiar atmosphere for the five friends. It was their sanctuary away from school pressures, annoying siblings, and the endless responsibilities of growing up. For a few hours every weekend, Lily, Ben, Sophia, Jake, and Max could lose themselves in their music.
Guys, come on. We need to focus. Lily's voice rang out as she sat at the piano adjusting her sheet music.
The natural leader of the group, she had a passion for classical music that rivaled her love for organizing the band. Her fingers gracefully moved over the keys, teasing out soft notes that filled the space around them. Ben, who was sitting behind the drums, gave an exaggerated sigh. Focus. Van bet this for hours. How about a break? His wild red hair and boundless energy matched the chaotic rhythm of his drum beats. If anyone embodied rock and roll, it was Ben. Yeah, we've got to shake it up a bit, Jake added, plucking his guitar strings with his usual laid-back grin. Let Sam for a while, and then maybe we'll find the groove. Sophia, cradling her violin under her chin, rolled her eye. You guys just want to mess around. She loved orchestral music, and the structure it provided was something she took comfort in. But she couldn't deny that Jake's relaxed attitude helped the group loosen up when things got too rigid. Max, the quietest of the group, stood by the window with his flute, watching the clouds drift lazily across the sky. I'm good with whatever, he said, softly, giving a small smile. Max had always been shy, but when he played his flute, it was as though the music spoke for him. Folk tunes were his favorite, and sometimes the simplicity of his music brought them all back to their root. Lily sighed but gave in. Fine, let's just play something. I need to clear my head. Anyway, as the five of them began to play, something strange happened. The music wasn't tea, just notes filling the air. It seemed to shimmer, glowing faintly. At first, they thought it was just a trick of the light, the way the sun filtered through the dusty garage window. But the glow intensified, and before they could stop playing, a strange, ethereal note appeared in the center of the room. What is that? Sophia whispered, her bow still poised over the string. The note pulsed, vibrating with an energy that made their instruments hum and respond. Without thinking, Lily reached out toward it, and as soon as her fingers touched the note, a wave of light washed over them. In an instant, the garage vanished. The familiar surroundings of home were replaced by vibrant colors and sounds, swirling around them in a symphony of movement. The ground beneath them was no longer concrete, but a path made of shimmering musical notes, each one lighting up as their feet touched them. Where are we? Max asked, his eyes wide with wonder. I don't know, Lily replied, just as confused. They all looked around, taking in the strange new world they had been transported to. The sky above them was a deep, endless blue with musical notes fluttering like birds in the air. Trees stood tall, their leaves shaped like treble clefs and bass clefs, swaying to an unheard melody. Rivers flowed, but instead of water, they were filled with sparkling liquid music. Welcome to the musical kingdom, a voice said, soft and melodic. They turned to see a woman standing before them, her form glowing with a soft light. She was dressed in flowing robes that seemed to be made of pure sound, and her eyes sparkled like stars. Who are you? Ben asked, stepping forward, his usual confidence replaced with curiosity. I am Melody, queen of the musical kingdom, the woman said with a gentle smile, and you are the chosen one. Chosen for what? Jake asked, his fingers still strumming absent-mindedly on his guitar. The King of Silence seeks to destroy all music to bring an end to the harmony that binds this world together. Melody explained, her voice filled with sadness. Your instruments possess magical powers, and only through the power of your music can you stop him. Lily looked down at her piano keys, then at the others. Magical powers, she repeated, not quite believing what she was hearing. Yes, each of your instruments holds a unique magic, one that reflects your heart and your passion for music, Melody said, stepping closer to them. You have been brought here to save the kingdom, but it will not be easy. The King of Silence is powerful, and he has already begun to spread his influence. If he succeeds, there will be no more music anywhere, ever again. The gravity of her words sank in, and the group exchanged uneasy glances. So we have to stop him, right? Ben said, his hand tightening around his drumstick. I mean, we were not just going to let this guy silence everything. Melody nodded, You will need to travel to the great concert hall where you can confront the King of Silence directly. But the journey will be dangerous. Along the way, you will face challenges that will test your musical abilities and your bond as a band. Sounds like an adventure, Jake said with a grin, but there was a hint of nervousness behind his usual calm demeanor. We'll do it, Lily said. Firmly, we can't let the King of Silence win. Melly smiled and waved her hand, causing a map to appear in the air before them. It floated gently into Lily. This will guide you to the great concert hall. Follow the path and trust. As Melody's form faded into the background, the band stood together looking at the path ahead of them. The first destination on the map was a place called the Jazz Forest. Jazz Forest, Sophia asked, raising an eyebrow. Ben chuckled, sounds like my kind of place. They began walking, their feet tapping along the glowing notes that formed the path. The air around them was filled with the sounds of distant melodies, and though they were in an entirely unfamiliar world, there was something comforting about the music that surrounded them. After walking for what felt like hours, the group reached the edge of the Jazz Forest. The trees were unlike any they had ever seen, tall and slender with leaves that shimmered in all shades of blue and purple. The forest floor was soft and seemed to pulse with rhythm beneath their feet. Okay, this place is officially weird, Jake muttered, strumming a few chords on his guitar. As they stepped deeper into the forest, the music around them began to change. It was no longer the soft, melodic tones they had heard earlier. Instead, it was chaotic, with rhythms clashing and melodies constantly shifting. Is it just me, or is the music off from excess? Glancing around nervously. It's jazz, Ben said with a grin. It's all about improvisation. Just go with the flow. But as they continued walking, the dissonance in the music grew louder, more jarring. The trees began to twist and turn, their branches swaying erratically to the unpredictable rhythm. I don't sound like this, Sophia said, tightening her grip on her violin. Lily looked at the map. We have to get through this forest if we want to reach the great concert hall. Let's just keep moving. But as they pressed on, the forest seemed to come alive around them. The ground shifted beneath their feet, and strange shadowy figures began to emerge from the trees. They were creatures made of pure sound, their forms constantly changing with the shifting melody. They were coming for us, Jake shouted, strumming a defensive chord on his guitar. Lily quickly sat at her piano, her fingers flying across the keys. The notes she played created a barrier of sound, pushing the creatures back. We have to stay together, she called out, her voice barely audible over the chaotic music. Ben pounded on his drums, sending shockwaves through the ground that knocked the creatures off balance. Max played a haunting melody on his flute, summoning a gust of wind that cleared a path through the forest. Sophia joined in, her violin producing a shield of sound that protected them from the creatures' attack. Together they moved as one, their music combining into a powerful force that overwhelmed the dissonance of the jazz forest. Slowly but surely, the creatures retreated, and the music of the forest began to settle into a more harmonious rhythm. Finally, they reached the other side of the forest, breathless but victorious. That was intense, Max said, wiping sweat from his brow. Yeah, but we did it, Ben said, grinning. We make a pretty good team. Lily looked at the map again. Their next destination was the Rock Mountains. Let's keep moving, she said. We were not done yet. As they continued their journey, the band grew closer, their bonds strengthened by the challenges they had faced. But they knew that the real battle was still ahead, the battle against the King of Silence. As the band ventured into the Rock Mountains, the air grew heavier, and the ground beneath their feet turned rough and uneven. The rhythmic pulse of the earth matched the pounding in their chests, reminding them that this was no ordinary mountain range. The sky above them was tinged with deep reds and purples, and jagged rock formations jutted up from the ground like the spines of some ancient beast. Ben grinned, gripping his drumsticks tightly as he looked around at the rocky landscape. This place is epic. Look at these rocks. You know what they need? A sick beat to shake things up. Lily, always the cautious one, glanced down at the map. We were supposed to pass through the Rock Mountains quickly. The trolls here only move when loud music is played, and we don't want to wake them. You say that like it's a bad thing, Ben said, already tapping out a rhythm on a nearby boulder. The vibrations from his drumming echoed through the mountains, causing small pebbles to roll down the slope. Ben, seriously, stop, Sophia warned, glancing around nervously. She said, "We don't truly want to draw any attention." But it was too late. The ground began to rumble beneath their feet, and the rocks started to shift. Slowly, hulking figures emerged from the mountainsides, giant rock trolls, their bodies made entirely of stone. Their faces were expressionless, but their movements were deliberate, each step sending tremors through the ground. "Well, I guess we're redoing this," Carrot Jake muttered, adjusting his guitar strap. Lilia's fingers flew across her piano keys, summoning a barrier of sound that slowed the trolls' advance. "We need to get past them fast, Ben. You've got to control the rhythm. Play something to lead them away from us." Ben nodded, his usual cocky grin replaced by a look of determination. He began to drum, but this time the beat was slower, more controlled. With each strike of his drumsticks, the trolls swayed to the rhythm, their movements becoming more predictable. They were following the beat, Max whispered, his flute ready at his lip. "That's the plan," Ben said, keeping the rhythm steady. The group began to move through the narrow pass between the trolls, keeping their distance but moving in time with the beat. The trolls lumbered along, swaying to Ben's rhythm, but not advancing toward them. Just as they reached the other side of the pass, one of the trolls let out a deep rumbling sound, a note that shook the very ground beneath them. The rhythm wavered, and the trolls began to move faster, their interest in the group renewed. "And speed it up," Jake shouted, strumming a fast-paced riff on his guitar to try to keep the trolls at bay. Ben increased the tempo, his arms a blur as he pounded the drums with everything he had. The trolls stumbled, their movements becoming erratic as they struggled to keep up with the new beat, but it was clear that they were getting agitated. "We were not going to be able to outrun them like this," Lily said, her fingers working furiously to keep the sound barrier strong. "She said we need to do something drastic." Max stepped forward, his flute raised. He played a soft, haunting melody, and the air around them shifted. A gust of wind swept through the mountains, picking up dust and debris. The wind swirled around the trolls, disorienting them and making it harder for them to focus on the rhythm. "Nice one, Max," Sophia called out as she added her violin sound to the mix, creating a wall of harmony that amplified the wind's power. Together, their music formed a protective barrier, and the trolls, confused and frustrated, began to retreat back into the mountain. The band pushed forward, moving quickly out of the pass and into the open landscape beyond the mountain. As the last of the trolls disappeared into the distance, they finally allowed themselves to breathe a sigh of relief. "Okay, that was way too close," Ben said, wiping sweat from his brow, tired but also kind of awesome. "Let's say just focus on getting to the great concert hall." Ellie said, her tone serious. "We almost there, and we can afford any more distraction?" The map showed that their final destination was just ahead, the great concert hall, where they would face the King of Silence. As they neared the hall, the landscape around them began to change. The vibrant colors and harmonious melodies of the kingdom grew fainter, replaced by a heavy, oppressive silence. The trees stood still, their leaves no longer swaying to the music. Even the rivers of melody had dried up, leaving only silence in their wake. The hall itself was an imposing structure, its towering walls made of cold gray stone. The entrance was flanked by statues of musicians, their instruments broken and shattered. It was a stark contrast to the rest of the kingdom, a place where music had once flourished, now reduced to lifeless silence. As they approached the entrance, the doors swung open on their own, revealing a long, empty corridor. The sound of their footsteps echoed through the silence, and a chill ran down their spine. "This place gives me the creeps," Jake muttered, tightening his grip on his guitar. "Where is everyone?" "They were probably hiding," Max said softly. Lily took a deep breath and stepped forward. "We have to stay focused. The King of Silence is in here somewhere, and we have to stop him." They moved cautiously through the hall, their instruments at the ready. As they entered the grand chamber at the heart of the hall, they saw him, the King of Silence. He stood tall and imposing, his form shrouded in shadow. His eyes glowed with a cold, lifeless light, and his presence seemed to suck the very sound out of the air. "You've come far, but it ends here," the King of Silence said, his voice deep and resonant, despite the lack of sound around him. "Music is chaos. It brings disorder, unpredictability. Silence is peace. Silence is control." "We're not going to let you destroy music," Lily shouted, her voice defiant. The King of Silence raised his hand, and the air around them grew heavier, the silence pressing in on them from all sides. One by one, their instruments began to fall silent, the magic within them fading. Lily Siwa's heart raced as she tried to play, but no sound came from her piano. The same was happening to the others: Ben S. drums, Sophia C. violin, Jake Sousa guitar, Max S. flute. All were silent. "We can too play," Sophia whispered, her voice trembling. "Ara, what do we do?" Lily's mind raced as she searched for an answer. The king of silence, power was too strong. He was silencing everything. But then she realized something. The silence wasn't complete. There was still one sound that remained. "Our voices," she said, her eyes lighting up. "We can too silence our voices." The others looked at her in confusion, but Lily was already moving. She began to hum a soft, simple melody. It wasn't too much, but it was enough to break through the silence. Slowly, the others joined in, their voices rising together in harmony. The king of silence frowned, his control over the silence wavering. "I know this cannot be done." But the band didn't stop. Their voices grew louder, more powerful, and with every note, the silence around them began to crack. The magic of their instruments flickered back to life, and soon they were playing again, this time louder and more unified than ever before. The king of silence recoiled, his power slipping away as the music filled the hall. The once silent chamber was now alive with sound, and the king could do nothing to stop it. With one final powerful chord, the band unleashed a wave of sound that shattered the silence completely. The king of silence let out a final defeated cry as he disappeared into nothingness, his control over the kingdom broken. The silence lifted, and the kingdom was restored. Music flowed freely once more, and the band stood together, victorious. "You did it, Iris," Melody's voice echoed through the hall as she appeared before them. "Or you saved the musical kingdom." Lily smiled, still catching her breath. "We did it together." As a reward for their bravery, Melody offered them a chance to stay in the musical kingdom, but the band knew their place was back on Earth. They returned home, their instruments still glowing with the magic they had discovered. Back in the garage, they resumed their practice, but now their music was different. It was filled with the knowledge of the power they held and the bond they shared. They had faced silence and won, and they knew that as long as they had each other, no challenge was too great. And so the magic band continued to play, their music echoing not just in their garage, but in the hearts of everyone who heard them. The adventure was over, but the music, now stronger than ever, was just beginning.